G4, American TV Network. G4, also known as G4 TV, was an American pay television and digital network owned by NBC Universal and later Comcast Spectacor that primarily focused on video games, technology, pop culture, and gaming culture. 1-2. The network was originally owned by G4 Media, a joint venture between the NBC Universal cable division of NBC Universal and Dish Network by the time of the channel's initial closure, and G4 first launched on April 24, 2002. In late 2012, the network's final studio programming were canceled in preparation for a planned relaunch as the Esquire Network, as part of a licensing deal with Hearst Corporation, owner of Esquire magazine. Esquire Network would ultimately replace Style Network instead. On September 23, 2013, G4 announced in November 2014 that it would be closing after several years of decline. 4, 5, 6. The original network shut down on December 31, 2014. By August 2013, it was reported that approximately 61,217,000 American households, 53.61% of households with television, were receiving the network. 7. On July 24, 2020, a revival of the G4 brand was announced. The network officially relaunched on November 16, 2021. 8, 9, 10, 11. On October 16, 2022, it was announced. 12. That Comcast would soon be shutting down the network again. 13. The revived network closed on November 18, 2022. 14. History. 2002 to 2014, original. Launch. G4 was launched on April 24, 2002, under the ownership of Comcast. 15. The initial concept was to create a service similar to rival Tech TV, but targeted at 12 to 34-year-olds, an elusive demographic. 16. The channel was soft launched with a week-long series of Pong matches. 17, 18. It was initially available to 3 million Comcast subscribers and offered 13 half-hour programs. 19. G4 was created and originally led by Charles Hirschhorn, a former president of Walt Disney Television and Television Animation. 1920. He expected video game creators themselves to eventually produce programming for the channel. He envisioned that G4 could follow in the footsteps of MTV, which provided music video producers with a venue for non-traditional television programming. 21. Hirschhorn intended G4 to become a vehicle for unconventional advertising. In 2002, G4 offered advertisers wide latitude to place their products on G4's programs, and even allowed their commercials to appear as if they were a part of the program. 22. G4 offered what was called a 2-minute unit, which was an advertising package played as if it were part of a G4 program that was long enough to run an entire movie trailer. G4 offered to sell the right to have a game showcased on the show Pulse. 22. 2004 to 2010, merger with Tech TV. On March 25, 2004, Vulcan Incorporated announced that G4 Media would acquire Tech TV and merge the two networks. 23. The combined network was rebranded as G4 Tech TV. On February 15, 2005, less than a year after the merger, the Tech TV brand was removed from the channel's name. 24. A Canadian version of Tech TV, originally launched on September 7, 2001. 25. Would also be relaunched under the G4 Tech TV branding and would retain the brand until 2009. 26. 27. In September 2005, Neil Tiles replaced Hirschhorn as the channel's president. 28. Tiles had previously been a senior marketing executive at DirecTV, Fox Sports, and ESPN. 29. He announced that G4 would be retooled as a male-oriented channel, stating that guys like to play games, but not necessarily watch a bunch of shows with games on the screen. 30. Comcast announced on October 12, 2006, that it would consolidate its West Coast entertainment operations, including G4, E! And Style Network into a new group headed by Ted Harbert, who had formerly run E! It was announced that the upper management of the G4 channel would relocate to E.S. Los Angeles office. 31. Harbert gave his opinion at the time that the focus of the channel on gaming has been demonstrated as being too narrow. 32. 33. On March 4, 2007, it was announced that the G4 studios in Santa Monica, California, would close on April 15. Production of G4 programs was relocated to the Comcast Entertainment Group facility, which housed E! and Style Network, in the Wilshire Courtyard complex in the Miracle Mile neighborhood of Los Angeles. G4's original facility remains in use as an E! studio and office facility and was utilized by Chelsea Lately and after Lately until their October 2012 move to Universal Studios Hollywood. As a consequence, many G4 employees involved in production were terminated. The sets of G4's original programs were also redesigned to fit within the new smaller spaces allocated to them. In April 2007, G4, in association with Earth 9/11, 34, launched an electronic waste recycling campaign called Cycle 35. On February 17, 2009, it was reported that G4 intended to cut back its original programming. X-Play would be reduced to 3 nights a week, while Attack of the Show would be cut to 4 nights a week. Consequently, a number of the staff and production crew involved in the shows would be laid off. Layla Cayley also left G4 in April 2009 after Neil Tiles announced that her contract would not be renewed. 36. 37. It was announced during Comic-Con 2010 that G4 would be the exclusive North American broadcaster of Marvel Anime, which made its television debut in 2011. 38. During the week of July 26 to August 1st, 2010, G4 temporarily changed its logo to 4G as a promotion for Sprint Nextel's next-generation wireless internet service. 39. 2010 to 2012, DirecTV carriage dispute and proposed buyouts by UFC and WWE. On November 1st, 2010, DirecTV announced that it had removed G4 from its channel lineup. 40, citing low interest among their subscriber base and low Nielsen ratings as the primary reason for the satellite service removing the channel. 41-42, DirecTV commented that it was unable to reach an agreement to continue carrying the G4 channel, and it has been removed from the DirecTV channel lineup. 43. It was reported that the UFC and WWE were in separate talks to buy G4 in 2011. 44-45. The UFC eventually partnered with Fox, while WWE launched its own network on February 24, 2014. 2012 to 2014, post-NBC Universal/Comcast merger, decline and closure. On January 5, 2012, Neil Tiles resigned as CEO. 46. He was replaced by former NBC Universal marketing chief Adam Stotsky. 47. Longtime employees Adam Sessler and Kevin Pereira both departed the network during the first half of 2012. 48-49. On October 26, 2012, it was announced that X-Play and Attack of the Show would be canceled by the end of the year. 50. This would end all of G4's studio programming, leaving it only airing acquired and syndicated programming. Reports of G4 rebranding itself in 2013 into an upscale men's channel appeared previous to the recent programming changes. X-Play and Attack of the Show aired their final original episodes, taped a month earlier, on January 23, 2013. In December 2012, NBC Universal signed a brand licensing deal with the Hearst Corporation, owner of Esquire magazine, to relaunch G4 into Esquire Network, which would air shows aimed at a metrosexual audience about travel, cooking, fashion, and non-sports related male programming, including the addition of acquired and archive NBCU content such as Party Down, Parks and Recreation, and week-delayed episodes of Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. 51-52. 53. The rebranding was scheduled to take place on April 22, 2013. 52. But was moved to an unspecified date in the summer on April 15, 2013. Network General Manager Adam Stotsky stated the rebranding was pushed back in order to have a broader original series slate to launch what then would have been available for the April launch. Stotsky confirmed that a new season of American Ninja Warrior would air on the network in the summer. 53. In May 2013, the launch date was pushed to September 23, 2013, with its first program being an 80th anniversary special for Esquire. 54. On September 9, 2013, it was announced that NBC Universal would instead replace the Style Network with Esquire Network, leaving G4 as is for the foreseeable future. Though it's highly unlikely the company will invest in more original programming. 3. The last active production of the network, G4 Media's American Ninja Warrior, became a full production of its existing production companies and NBC Universal Television distribution with its 6th season, leaving G4 Media solely as a dormant division of Comcast, maintaining the G4 and Tech TV program archives and the remaining operations of the G4 network. Slow closure and carriage removals. Upon the rebranding of Style Network to Esquire Network on September 23, 2013, G4 was removed from several cable providers. Time Warner Cable and Bright House Networks, whose carriage contracts were negotiated by Time Warner Cable, were the first to remove G4, citing the network's low viewership as not a good value for our customers. 55. Verizon FiOS discontinued the channel on October 1, 2013, and Cablevision did so on October 10, 2013, pursuant to a filing with the Connecticut Department of Public Utility Control, that state's utility service regulator, a month prior, that NBC Universal had plans to discontinue G4's operations as of the October 10th date, though only the discontinuation of carriage by Cablevision occurred. 56. Late in October 2013, Charter Communications, which was one of the charter carriers of Tech TV when it was a sister of that network under the ownership of Vulcan Ventures, announced its intention to remove G4 on December 17th. Sister network Clue replaced G4 on its systems. 57. On November 1st, 2013. Dish Network removed it from the lineup with Esquire Network replacing G4. 58. Ending all carriage of the network from direct broadcast satellite services. Cox discontinued carriage of G4 in all markets on December 31st, 2013. 59. NBC Universal's parent company, Comcast, removed G4 from its Xfinity systems nationwide on January 6, 2014. 60. Comcast did not state outright that the network would shut down on that date. 61. G4 continued to be carried on other cable systems nationwide despite being largely absent from the top 10 media markets, Time Warner Cable, Cablevision, or Comcast, or some combination thereof, is the dominant cable operator in all of the top 10 Nielsen DMAs. G4 still appeared on NBCU's corporate website, but it was no longer present on NBCU's Media Village press site. With G4 slowly decaying, syndication rights to Heroes and Lost expired at the end of August 2014, along with the rights to Cops, which went to Clue, leaving G4 to only air repeats of their original series beginning on September 1st, 2014. Certain cable operators reported that the network would close on November 30th, 2014, for 5, 6, and the aforementioned providers continued airing the network until the alleged closure date, or when their contracts with G4 were fully exhausted, ending all carriage of the network from cable providers and cable television services. 62. Some providers kept the channel on before its closure, but later replaced with a gray screen with G4's audio feed, still being heard before removing G4 from there. Lineup completely. AT&T Uverse and newly formed television provider Google Fiber were among the last services to carry G4 and continued to broadcast the channel until its closure. 63. G4's last program was the first episode of X-Play at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on December 31st, 2014. A note on the G4 website's program schedule was added to that particular episode saying, "Thanks for watching G4." 64. The network then closed after that episode with a game of Pong on the screen. referencing the network's launch, gradually getting smaller and smaller before becoming just a small dot. A man's voice shouting, "I'm at Comic-Con," was then heard, followed by a game over sound from the Atari 2600 version of the game Donkey Kong, and the Game Boy boot up chime playing over an effect of an analog-era TV turning off. Following this, the screen went black before pay TV services that carried the channel at the time of its closure displayed a message informing consumers that it had shut down. 65. 2020 to 2022 Revival. Pre-launch and before G4. Victory Studios, former home of TMZ and Extra, circa 2007. It was renovated to serve as the home of the G4 Revival. 66. On July 24, 2020, G4's Twitter accounts for Attack of the Show and X-Play were reactivated to post a teaser video announcing a revival of the network slated for 2021. The teaser was released during Comic-Con at Home, a virtual streaming edition of San Diego Comic-Con. G4's website was reopened with a playable game of Pong which, if won, redirected to a mailing list to sign up for updates and a free shirt promo code. The campaign was in reference to the network's original launch in 2002 and their shutdown in 2014. 67-68. Comcast would transfer operations of G4 from NBC Universal to its Spectacor division. Former owners of the now-defunct Prism Regional Premium Cable Television Channel. 1. On August 12, 2020, Olivia Munn, the former co-host of Attack of the Show, was reportedly in final talks for a multi-year deal with G4. 69. On September 4, 2020, the official G4 YouTube channel uploaded a video featuring former X-Play host Adam Sessler as one of his fictional characters, Crazy Adam, asking for fans to submit applications to become a G4 host or simply nominate their favorite personalities with the hashtag G4 Needs Talent. 70. On November 16, 2020, G4 announced a very special G4 Holiday Reunion special, a scripted special hosted by Ron Funches featuring interviews with Kevin Pereira, Olivia Munn, Adam Sessler, Morgan Webb, Kristen Adams, and Blair Herter. The special premiered on November 24th on Twitch and YouTube. Sci-Fi would also air the special on November 27, 71. At the special's end, wrestler Xavier King Austin Creed would be the first newly announced host for G4's relaunch, after beginning a campaign on Twitter to become a G4 personality in August 2020. 72-73. On the same day of the special's premiere, G4 launched Gravathon, a charity drive that would be raising funds for a variety of community partners. 74. On January 28, 2021, G4 announced that both Attack of the Show and X-Play would be revived due to high demand from fans. They also gave a tentative date of mid-2021 for the network's relaunch. 9. The following day, the company launched the Before G4 brand, featuring short-form experimental content on YouTube and Twitter created to gain feedback from audiences that would help determine the shows for G4's relaunch. 75. On February 12, 2021, the Before G4 iterations of Attack of the Show and X-Play began, with Kevin Pereira and Adam Sessler returning to host their respective series Wink with a Frown. 76. These involved humorous sketches for ATS and Let's Plays with other gaming-based streamers and YouTubers alongside Sessler for X-Play. On the same day, it was announced that esports shoutcasters Indiana, Froskuren, Black, and Ovalee May would be the network's new hosts, along with the series The Bleep Esports Show, a satirical program focusing on current gaming-related news. 77. In March, the network also began live streaming on both Twitch and YouTube, where its hosts interact with the audience and do watch-alongs to new Before G4 videos. 78. On April 2nd, 2021, G4 uploaded a video on their YouTube channel revealing the return of Epic April, a month dedicated to new announcements. On April 5th, G4 revealed the development of a new competitive series hosted by Xavier King with Austin Creed in partnership with WWE to air in the fall. 79. On April 11th, esports shoutcaster The Titan Games commentator and former AEW commentator Alex Golden Boy Mendez was announced to be joining the network as a new host. On April 14, 2021, G4 announced that Ninja Warrior, an English-dubbed version of the Japanese show Sasuke, itself the original Japanese version of American Ninja Warrior, would be returning to the network with 3 new tournaments and a total of 167 episodes, 80. On April 19th, comedian and YouTuber Kasim G was announced to be joining the network as a new host, 81. On April 28th, Adam Sessler and Kasim G revealed during a live stream that cosplayer Jeffersaurus Carvey was the network's first hashtag G4 needs talent hire, 82. Its final epic April announcement was made on the 30th, where virtual YouTuber and live streamer character Code Miko, along with her creator known only as The Technician, would be joining as a new host, 83. On May 5th, 2021, G4 was announced to be the official broadcaster of Dungeons & Dragons Live, airing on July 16th and 17th, 84 on May 14th. YouTuber and podcaster Gina Darling was revealed during a live stream with Adam Sessler and Kasim G to be joining as a new host, 85. Relaunch. On October 12, 2021, it was announced that G4's cable network would officially relaunch on November 16, 2021, 11. In November 2021, it was announced that airings of select episodes of the web series Scott the Woz would air on G4 in 1-hour blocks. 86. The show was scheduled to debut on December 7, 2021, at 6:30 p.m. EST, 87, but due to technical difficulties involving Amazon Web Services, it did not air in that time slot. The show would officially debut at 10:30 p.m. EST, 86. The network officially relaunched on November 16th at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with a marathon of the original Ninja Warrior, occasionally featuring reruns of the very special G4 Holiday Reunion special from the previous year. The catastrophic launch special was broadcast on the network's Twitch and YouTube channels that same evening before airing on the cable network on the next day, 88. On March 7, 2022, G4 launched a fast channel on Pluto TV called G4 Select, which carried most of G4's regular programming. As part of an exclusive partnership, the channel would also feature new content catered to free, linear streaming audiences, 89-90. The channel was later added to Vizio's watch-free platform on June 16, 2022, 91. 92. Second closure. On October 16, 2022, it was announced that G4 would be shutting down after relaunching the previous year, 93, 94, 95. Several factors that led to G4's discontinuation ranged from low viewership, a lack of audience strategy, ever-changing and absent leadership, competition with streaming content creators on YouTube and Twitch, cord-cutting under promotion, and high expenditures. 96, 97, 98, G4 Select would be removed from Pluto TV on October 19, 2022, during an episode of Attack of the Show, Vibe Check. The network fully shutting down on October 21st, ending 2 minutes into Smosh Wink with a Frown 99, G4 Select would later close. On Vizio, G4 in itself left Philo, YouTube TV, Xfinity, and Cox prior to the shutdown, with FiOS being the last to carry the network until its discontinuation on November 18, 2022, 2 days after the first anniversary of the relaunch. Citation needed. A screen reading, "Thank you for watching," appeared after midnight, 100. However, FiOS ended their signal of the network just seconds prior to midnight, cutting off in the middle of the sign-off. 101. Programming. In addition to video game culture, G4's programming encompassed geek, fandom, genre, and general audience shows aimed at young adults. The network primarily live streamed its original programming on their Twitch and YouTube channels. These live streams are edited to air on the linear television channel and video on demand platforms the next day. The television channel's programming featured reruns of older G4 shows, as well as other acquired programs. 102. Pulse was a pre-recorded weekly news show that focused on the gaming industry that aired on G4. In November 2004, along with other G4 Tech TV programs, the show was canceled. News segments were merged with revamped version of the screensavers, later Attack of the Show, though eventually those duties were taken over by the editorial staff of X-Play. G4's website previously featured game trailers and reviews, select video hosts/correspondents.